Hey everybody, my name is Nana York, and today I'll be presenting to you guys about something a little bit different. As you can see, my title is Health and Wellness in Competitive Video Gaming. I chose this topic because I have a pretty big passion in esports and gaming, and as you can see, there are lots of different teams you can support in lots of different video games. So let's go ahead and get started. So, first things first, obviously, the scope of competitive video gaming has gotten a lot larger in recent years. Right now, there's an estimated 40 million players of Overwatch, a first-person shooter that involves some mobile online battle arena elements into it. There are an estimated 60 million Rocket League players, which Rocket League is my game of choice, and it involves a game. It's a game that involves cars that can fly, and the essential goal is that you're playing soccer, and it's usually 3v3. And one of the most popular video games is League of Legends, and it has an estimated 80 million players worldwide. And currently, tournaments in all kinds of games, spanning from Call of Duty to Counter-Strike, and even Fortnite, get 60,000 to 120,000 viewers during championships on live streams. And that can often overshadow numbers of people watching professional sports such as baseball or basketball and even stuff like the Super Bowl. And as esports has grown, even colleges and high school teams have created competitive gaming teams where they give scholarships for teams competing. However, with all of this growth, there's a lot of uncertainty about how much there has been done in terms of the realm of health and wellness, and that's what this presentation will deal with. So in general, teams, especially esports organizations, try to accommodate their players as much as they can. So in one way, they have team houses, such as the one shown with the Fnatic team house here. There are many teams that have whatever teams in a specific game kind of live together, so that the teammates get more used to each other, and foster a more healthy environment. Teams also scrimmage a lot. Typically, a team can practice as much as 10 hours a day leading up to a competition or a tournament. And that can lead to a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety and just a lot of not a lack of physical activity. And that's where physical workouts come into play. So some teams do try to set up workout routines with their players, and oftentimes they try to focus on muscle groups that are not used when sitting for long periods of time, so that they can be more comfortable, and also a lot of stretches. And then finally, there's a lot of streaming that players do. So if they're not actually scrimmaging or if they're not in actual tournaments, another way to make money can be either as a content creator for an esports organization, or if a player is just popular enough, then people will watch them play. And then also the cost of gaming equipment can vary depending on the game. Some games you don't really need that high end of a computer to run them. For example, League of Legends, one of the reasons why it's so popular is that you can play it on some pretty crummy laptops, and so it allows for a larger player base. But then there are some games that you're gonna need some better equipment, especially games that are first-person shooters. You're probably gonna want a higher-end monitor, because to increase your amount of time to react to something, you're gonna need a higher refreshing rate. Which will allow you to have a higher frames per second on your monitor, and you'll be able to react quicker. And then finally, it can take a really long time to get into the competitive scene. So some games do have a path to pro. Some of them are better than others. And so it can be very stressful to almost get to the peak of your game and then just not really get there, because it's not quite stable. And that there's a lot of turmoil in that kind of way for esports. So how do all these factors affect competitive gamers. Obviously, there are some problems with gaming. So, the World Health Organization recently recognized gaming disorder as a health disorder, and is characterized obviously by addiction, lack of prioritization, reduced hygiene, and a lack of social behavior. So, honestly, a lot of these things are associated with gamers, especially like unhealthy kinds of gamers. In fact, a lot of stereotypes kind of rely on those kinds of characteristics. And there is also some debate as to whether like this can actually be considered a disorder or not. So some people have concerns about that. And then also, you can get injured playing games, surprisingly. Some people, well, there are the more common ones involving neck, back, wrist, and leg pain. Obviously, neck and wrist. Neck because some people don't position themselves properly with their chair. Wrist because if you're playing a game that involves a lot of wrist movements with your mouse, then that can cause a lot of strain. And then the other ones just because of the way that you're sitting for long periods of times. There have been some cases where people have had to stop playing games professionally because their health problems got so severe. And then furthermore, improper dieting is pretty common with a lot of people. And then obviously the lack of physical activity will just compound that problem. And often in esports, there's a burnout of players in the professional scene. So some games, professionals retire usually in their late 20s, if not earlier. It's starting to seem like things are changing a little bit. There are more people a little bit older recently, but we'll see if that continues. So that's probably one of the one of the things that professional actual physical sports probably is a little bit better. There are some athletes that are probably in their 40s and still pretty good at their game, but a lot of esports relies on reaction time, and so there's kind of an edge to the younger population. And also, like, stress is a big deal in games. So obviously, because video games are a lot more mental than physical, there's a need for an understanding of mental well-being, and that can quite often be the difference between winning and losing. So we know there's actually there's a study done in Germany where they tested heart rate and also collected cortisol levels of players while playing Counter-Strike, and they found that their stress levels the bodies of the players undergo a similar amount of stress as Formula One racers. And I think that's interesting for two reasons. One, because not everybody really thinks of like Formula One racing as really a sport, but there is a lot of stress that the racers go under. And then also, there are also esports in Formula One racing. In fact, right now, because of the coronavirus outbreak, a lot of the tournaments and races have been moved to like online kind of presences where they kind of compete in a virtual space. And finally, not accounting for physical and mental stress can lead to toxicity and poor mental health, and that'll eventually lead to what the World Health Organization classified as a gaming disorder. So one of the biggest problems in gaming in general often is toxicity and just people being very negative to one another online. And some of that is because of the anonymity. Some of that is just also because of the stress that people undergo if they're playing for long periods of time and not really taking breaks and stuff. So that can be a big deal as well. So obviously the solutions, there are many. Some professional teams actually have a team cook who designs the meals for their players and stuff. Some of them have professional like coaches that do exercise routines with them. And then the last three are like easily done for people who aren't necessarily on a competitive team. So like having adequate lighting and taking consistent breaks. Usually you're not supposed to be playing for longer than 2 hours at a time. And having a good amount of lighting in your room will lessen eye strain. And along with that, having a good sleep cycle will help with that. Not only will it increase your performance, it'll also just reduce eye strain. And then playing with positive people will also increase your mental capabilities, just make you feel better and probably be less toxic. So here are the discussion questions. Do you think gaming disorder is or could become a significant problem in the future? And then finally, do you think gaming and esports will continue to grow? And then last thing, Here are my primary references. That is all. Thank you for watching.